Right. So today we are going to discuss about the second generation H1 antagonist, right? So in the first generation, what we have discussed, we have basically discussed that the first generation antihistamine resembles more toward the cholinergic type of antagonist or the inhibitor, right? So what we were doing in the H1 antagonist from the classical or the classical histamine antihistamines, what we were doing, we were improving their selectivity toward the H1 receptor, right? So there we have a general formula with a two aromatic ring, X, a spacer, and a nitrogen, right? So that was the thing. Now today we are going to discuss about the second generation H1 antagonist, right? So basically these molecules are less sedative because they cannot enter inside the CNS. The important thing is that, right? So in the first generation, basically what was the problem? The first thing, they were actually showing some anticholinergic side effects, right? Like the blurred vision and the dry mouth, right? That was the common thing. The second problem was that when we were modifying the molecules, right? So they were basically they were becoming more rigid, right? And due to their rigidity, they were becoming more lipophilic, and the lipophilic molecule can easily cross the blood-brain barrier, right? So today we are going to discuss about the second generation H1 antagonist. So in your syllabus, basically there are three drugs. Let me open my laser pointer, right? So basically there is a drug estimizole, cetirizine, and the levocetirizine. So basically this estimizole is now banned, right? It's banned in the market, right? Because of its some side effects, basically the food drug and food interaction, right? So I'll be discussing that thing, right? And the two other drugs are the cetirizine and the levocetirizine. So these are one of the majorly OTC available drugs, right? The cetirizine and the levocetirizine, right? So we'll be discussing about this thing today. So firstly, we'll be moving to the estimizole, right? See the name, azole, right? Azole means a nitrogen containing five-membered ring. Simple thing, right? So basically, this is used to treat the allergy symptoms, right? So now here what we have, anybody, this ring, this is an imidazole ring, and when it is fused to this benzene, this become what? This one, it become benzimidazole, right? We have done this in the Hans Wildman nomenclature system last year, right? In the last semester, sorry. So basically, this is a benzimidazole derivative, estimizole, right? So structure similarity will not be there with the H1 classical one, right? So basically, this is the thing. So this is the common pharmacophore, benzimidazole. So basically, this compound, this is simple chemistry. This compound belongs to the organic compound known as the benzimidazole. So you all are aware what are the benzimidazole. So basically, these are the organic compound containing a benzene ring. So this is a benzene ring fused to an imidazole ring, right? So this is the imidazole ring, and here it is the fusion, right? So its name is benzimidazole, right? Benzene fused with the imidazole ring, right? So this was the thing, right? So basically the estimizole is a long acting non-sedating. So basically when we'll be talking about the second generation inhibitors, there will be non-sedative effect, right? Unlike the first generation one, right? So this is the very common peculiar feature about the second generation H1 antagonist, right? So estimizole is a long acting second generation antihistamine used in the treatment of allergy symptoms. Those, it's basically the purpose will be same, right? Now the important point, it was withdrawn from the market by the manufacturer in the 1999. Why? Due to the potential due to cause arrhythmia at the high dose, especially when taken with the CYP inhibitor or the grapefruit juice, right? So this was the major thing why this was removed from the market. So this type of question sometimes can be asked in the GPAT examination, right? They may ask you what was the main reason why the estimizole was withdrawn from the market, right? So basically it was withdrawn because it was showing some drug food interaction. Basically, when we are taking it with the cytochrome inhibitors or when we are taking it with the grapefruit juice, because in the grapefruit juice there is a resveratrol, right, which is known as a cytochrome P450 inhibitor. So what they were actually doing, they were actually inhibiting the potassium channels at the heart, right? So if the potassium channel are blocked, So there will be a conditions of the arrhythmias, right? So that is the reason why this drug was banned, right, in the market and withdrawn from the market in 1999. So this is the common thing. So this drug is not used now, right? So this is just for your knowledge and information, right? So the important point to remember here is only this thing, right? This can become in the GPAT examination. So this is important thing, right? Now we'll be moving to one of the drug that maximum of you are using, right? It's a common drug which we use daily use. You can easily find it in your household, right? So basically we are talking about the cetirizine. So basically cetirizine is again a histamine H1 antagonist drug, right? So basically it is used for the two purpose. One is the allergic rhinitis, right? What is that thing? Basically the allergy that is caused by the hay, pollen, dust, animal hair, or the mold spores, right? These are the fungal spores, right? So basically any allergy caused by this is also called, basically pollen is a seasonal allergy. Pollen causes a seasonal allergies, right? So any allergens, these all are the allergens. So any allergies caused by these allergens, right? So first purpose is this. So what is the peculiar feature of this allergens, right? They actually cause the nasal inflammation and they also cause the nose inflammation, right? Basically they will affect your nose and they will affect your respiratory tract and they will cause the inflammation. So this is the first use where the cetirizine is used, right? The second use is the chronic urticaria, right? So this is the common thing. This is the common thing, the rashes and the boils, right? This is the common thing. So basically it is used to treat these two conditions mainly and chiefly, right? So this is the thing where it is used, right? So now we'll be discussing about this structure, right? So it's a different type of structure. See, we have a something common here. This thing is the common thing, right? But here what we have a carboxylic acid group, right? Instead of a nitrogen or a dimethyl nitrogen or a cyclic nitrogen is here, right? But what we are doing, we are extending it further, right? So basically this is the cetirizine molecule, right? So basically these are the diphenyl methane derivatives. Why they are called the dimethyl methane derivatives? See, this is the carbon, and in this carbon there are four hydrogens. So two hydrogens are replaced by this phenyl ring and one is this phenyl ring, right? The third hydrogen is replaced by this thing and there will be a fourth hydrogen, right? So this is the diphenyl methane derivative basically, right? So again a bit of chemistry. This compound belongs to the class of organic compound known as diphenyl methane, right? So these are the compounds containing a diphenyl methane moiety which consists of a methane, right? This is a methane basically, wherein the two hydrogen atoms are replaced by the two phenyl group. So the two hydrogens are replaced by the two phenyl groups and one hydrogen is replaced by this ring. Which ring is this? Anyone? Anyone? This ring. What is the name of this ring? कल ही पढ़ा है हमने ये. Anyone? Anyone? This is the piperazine ring, right? This is the piperazine ring. So you should know some of the common structures, right? So basically this is the cetirizine. So now there was also a precursor of a cetirizine. For example, what we call the prodrug, right? Uh, you might ask a question, what are the prodrugs, right? So basically prodrugs are the drugs that are inactive, that are actually inactive as such, but upon metabolism they get activated, right? So this is the common thing. So there was a drug hydroxyzine, right? This is the common drug hydroxyzine where we have a phenol group here, right? So this drug upon metabolism get converted to the cetirizine, right? So cetirizine is in the active form, right? So this was the example. This was the example whereas the hydroxyzine was metabolized to get converted into the cetirizine, right? So now this was the alcohol group, right? And upon undergoing the what? This is getting converted to what? Acid. right? So this is the common thing, right? So now one important thing, if you look closely at the structure, what we have a carbon over here, right? Whenever we have a carbon, we have to look for the different substituent, right? So basically here it is a phenyl ring, here it is a chlorobenzene, here is a piperazine, and one there will be a hydrogen, right? Hydrogen is basically not shown, right? So now we have four different substituents around this carbon atom, right? What did it mean? Basically, this central carbon possesses a chirality, right? So when it will be possessing a chirality, when there will be a single chiral, how many isomers will be there? And anybody? If there is a single chiral center, right? अगर यहाँ पे एक chiral center होगा तो उसके कितने isomers होंगे? This we have discussed last year in the organic chemistry. Anyone? How many isomers are possible for a single chiral center?
Sir, 2.
Great, right? It will be 2. 2 to the power of n, right? Simple thing, right? So basically now there will be two form. One will be the L form, other will be the D form. One could be the R form or other could be the S form, right? We can say that. Now, so this is the common thing. So basically there it is the chiral center, right? This is the chiral center. Now, basically if it is a chiral center, there will be two isomers, stereoisomers, right? One is the L and other is the D, right? So there are basically two chiral centers. So basically this is the thing. See, first chiral center, this is the L stereoisomer, right? This is the second. This is the dash bond, this is the West bond, right? So basically there are the two isomers, L stereoisomer and the D stereoisomer. So basically cetrazine, you can say cetrazine is a racemic mixture of two stereoisomers, the L stereoisomers and the D stereoisomers in the ratio of 1:1, right? So this is the thing. See, these both are the chiral centers. Now, this L stereoisomer, if we isolate this, see, we have also learned about that resolution of the chirals in the last class, in the last semester of the organic chemistry, right? So there were many methods to resolve the chiral compounds, right? The chiral column chromatography, right? Many things were there. So what we have to do, if we are just separating this L stereoisomer from the cetrazine, this is called the levocitrazine, right? So levocitrazine is nothing. This is this L stereoisomer. This is solely the L stereoisomer of the citrazine, right? So this it is called the levocitrazine, right? This is the only difference, right? So we'll be discussing about the other thing also. So chemically, the levocitrazine is the active L enantiomer of the citrazine, right? So this is the common thing you should remember. Basically, this type of question can be asked and again in the GPAT exams, right? So these are some of the conceptual questions. They can ask you which form of the citrazine is the levocitrazine, or they may ask you some differently questions. So they may ask you, for example, why the citrazine is in exists in the racemic mixture form, right? So you should know these things, right? So now, so this is just listen to this figure, right? So now we'll be discussing about some points of these both stereoisomers, right? So basically, when we talk about the stereoisomers, what is the common thing? What is the common thing? They have a same chemical and the physical properties, right? But they differ in their biological activities, right? So this was the thing, right? So basically, the dextrocitrazine appears to be tenfold less potent than levocitrazine. The first thing, for example, if we are going to the market and we want to buy one, we are seeing that there is a citrazine and there is a levocitrazine. Of course, the cost of levocitrazine will be higher than as compared to the citrazine, right? Why it will be so? Because the levocitrazine is a pure enantiomer, right? It's a pure enantiomer existing in the L form, right? Whereas whereas the citrazine is a racemic mixture having both the dextrocitrazine and the levocitrazine, right? So that's why the levocitrazine cost will be higher, right? So basically, see, when we talk about the activity, dextrocitrazine appear to be 10-fold less potent than the levocitrazine. So this is the first point. But there are some similarities also. Levocitrazine and the citrazine are largely excreted in the urine with no significant hepatic metabolism. So this is the common thing. Basically, the enzymes, the cytochrome P450 enzymes, which are interacting with the citrazine and the levocitrazine and enabling their metabolism, right, work in a similar nature, work in a similar way, basically, right, to metabolize these two drugs, right. Second, the renal tubular secretion of dextrocitrazine is 40% greater than the levocitrazine. What does it mean? It means that the dextrocitrazine has a less half-life when we compare it with the levocitrazine, right. So these are the things. Now the second thing, the levocitrazine, the R enantiomers of the citrazine dihydrochloride has pharmacodynamically and pharmacokinetically favorable characteristics, right? So basically this, they are saying that the levocitrazine is having the better pharmacodynamics and the pharmacokinetics properties, right, in comparison to the citrazine, right, where there were two enantiomers, which also include the rapid onset of action, high bioavailability, high affinity for the histamine receptor, limited distribution. See, this is a very important point when we are discussing about the drug. Limited distribution. So if there is a limited distribution of the drug, there will be high chances that there will be less off targets effect of the drug, means there will be less ADRs or less toxicity, right. Minimal hepatic metabolism together with the minimal outwards effect, right. So this is the common thing, right. Third thing is, it is well tolerated treatment for the allergic disease in adult children and the infants, right. So this is the basic difference between the citrazine and the levocitrazine. So now here I have one question to ask, right. For example, see, I am telling about this point, levocitrazine, the R enantiomer, we can say it in the L form or we can represent it by the R form. L means the optical activity, right? Whereas the R and S form means the way of writing a optica, basically the stereoisomer configuration, right? So this we have discussed last time also. So don't get confused with the L and the R. They both are the different thing. L represents the optical activity, whereas the R is the way of writing a molecule, right? So this is the thing. So now I have one question to ask here, right? I am saying that the levocitrazine, which is the R enantiomer of the citrazine, has pharmacodynamically and pharmacokinetically favorable characteristics. Means I am saying ki it has more affinity toward the H1 receptor. It is acting very fast. Can anybody tell me what could be the reason for this? What could be the reason why the levocitrazine is behaving so well in comparison to the common citrazine, which is the racemic mixture? Anyone? Any reasons for this? Anyone? Any reason why the levocitrazine is behaving more well pharmacodynamically and the pharmacokinetically comparison to the citrazine? Anyone? Use just your organic chemistry knowledge, where what we have dealt in the stereochemistry sessions, right? Anyone? Any answers to this? Guys, are you there? Are you present?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So can anybody tell the reason?
Sir, because it is only a single enantiomer instead of mixture of two.
So what will happen if it is a mixture of two and if it is a single enantiomer? What will happen actually?
it will bind to the receptor more better, like it has different configuration um
लिवोसिट्राजीन की सर एफिनिटी ज्यादा अच्छी होगी रिसेप्टर बाइंडिंग पे
क्यों
देन
क्यों
सिट्राजीन सर।
क्यों 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 होगी? सिट्राजीन में भी तो दोनों चीजें हैं ना, दोनों कंपोनेंट्स आर देयर, देयर इज अ डेक्स्ट्रो वन, देयर इज अ लीवो वन, और यू कैन से वन इज आर, वन इज एस, so why is it so? Srishti was somewhat right. See, basically in the last session when we discussed about, we have talked about something like the stereoselective nature, right? When we talk about the receptor, for example, if I am talking about the H1 receptors, right? So H1 receptor किससे बने हैं? They are made up of amino acids, right? So the amino acid is having only a single configuration, right? Because we have a pure amino acids that are existing in the L form. So all the proteins that will be forming from the amino acid will have the L configuration. होगा? Agree with this? In our
yes
body,
sir.
basically all the amino acids are in the L form, right? So basically when the receptor will be formed, a receptor is what? A receptor is just a protein, right? So when a receptor is forming, it will have a single enantio, it will be very enantio selective, right? So for example, when there are the two drugs, for example, I say cetrazine, right? In the cetrazine, there are two things. There is a dextro form and there is a levo form, right? So basically, when the two forms are binding, approaching that particular receptor, right, there will be a competition to bind, right? But what will happen? The L form will bind the perfectly, right? This we have seen, as we have seen that the L form is 90% more active in comparison to the dextro, right? I have written somewhere in the slide also, right? So and so what will happen? The levo form will bind, and the dextro form, you can recall one point where I said that key, basically the dextro form is 40% rapidly metabolized in comparison to the levo form. So why it is happening? Because the dextro form is not binding that well to the receptor and it isn't free. And when the drug will be free, what will happen? It will be processed by the metabolic enzymes. For example, we have in our body cytochrome P450s, we have aldehyde oxidases, right? So they will actually do what? They will actually, they will do, they will metabolize that drug, the dextro form, right? So this is the one reason why the levo form is more active. So when we are giving the drug in the purest form, in the pure enantiomeric form, the L form only, so there will be no competition with the dextro form, right? So the levo will go rapidly to the histamine 1 receptor and it will bind, right? So that is why it has more better pharmacokinetics parameter, more better pharmacodynamics parameter, a rapid onset of action, right? So these are the reasons, right? So these are the common reasons. So today what we have done, so we have just finished about the H1 receptors, right? There were many drugs. So I'll be telling you in the next class what type of question can be expected from this part, this single part, where we have discussed about the H1 antagonist, and we'll be proceeding with the H2 antagonist, right? So now when we'll be moving to the H2 antagonist, we'll be dealing primarily what? About the ulcers, right? Because the S2 receptor are commonly located in the stomach, right? So basically we'll be discussing how the histamine is actually allowing the HCl release or the acid release in the stomach, right? And how to block that thing, right? And how to maintain a selectivity between the H1 and the S2 receptor, right? So we'll be discussing this thing in the next lecture. So if anybody have any questions regarding the H1 antagonist, right, both things, the classical and the non-classical, they may ask their questions or queries or doubts. और अगर कुछ समझ में नहीं आया तो that thing also. So are there any queries, doubts, anything? So what I'll be doing, I'll be putting this H1 antagonist in your Moodle. I'll be also uploading some books and some literature, right? So over the weekend, you can go through it, right? If there will be some questions, queries or anything, right? So you may ask. ठीक है? Right. So with this, I am just closing this session. So even if any questions are there, any doubts are there, they may ask. So I feel there are no questions or doubts, right? So I'm just closing this class. So you may just go through the slides. I'll be uploading shortly, right? And then you can just ask your questions or queries or anything, right? Regarding the H1 antagonist, and just go through to the S2 antagonist also. We'll be starting that thing in the next class, the upcoming class on Monday, right? So this is the thing. Hope you understand something. You got something out of this H1 antagonist, right?
Yes, sir.
So then thank you for joining. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.